Welcome to Daily English. Enjoy the story. The following content is entirely fictional, created for entertainment and to bring an exciting narrative experience to our listeners. Synopsis. I do live fortune-telling sessions at midnight. The very first person to join the stream only sent an old photo and asked, "Can you tell me if he's still alive?" In the photo was a young guy standing under the harsh fluorescent light of a convenience store. He wore a gray hoodie, held 2 cups of milk tea, and was smiling warmly at the girl beside him. The photo looked completely ordinary, so ordinary that if I hadn't looked down at the floor, I would have assumed he was just an ex-boyfriend who went off the grid. But his shadow on the tile floor had no head. The livestream chat exploded with laughter. If he's missing, call the cops. Why ask a streamer? This streamer is staging another drama. He probably just got bored and left. Stop inventing tragedies. I didn't laugh, because the moment I laid my hands on the deck, 3 distinct knocks echoed from the wall behind me. Knock, knock, knock. The card I flipped was originally the Hanged Man, but the artwork on its surface slowly dissolved. In its place appeared a red brick wall, freshly cemented and sloppily whitewashed. From the cracks between the bricks, thick black liquid oozed drop by drop. Behind that wall, a human eye stared back at me, wide open. I said, "Stop looking outside. He never left that apartment. He's inside the wall." The next morning, the police demolished the eastern wall of the living room. Inside was indeed a sealed male corpse. On the back of the victim's neck was a small talisman pasted with dried blood, bearing 4 words, "The destiny is buried." I stream my fortune-telling sessions inside Hollow Sanctuary at exactly 12 o'clock midnight. The temple was left to me by my late master. The original name, Serenity Temple, sounded divine, but in reality, the roof leaked, the plaster was peeling, and the main shrine's sacred statue had half its face washed away by rain. The wooden sign at the gate had been eroded by years of storms, leaving only 2 visible words, Hollow Sanctuary. The locals in the alley didn't call me a priestess, they called me, the girl guarding the Hollow Temple. My name is Chloe, 22 years old, the 17th generation successor of the sanctuary. Calling myself a successor sounded grand, but I was the only person left in the entire temple. By day, I swept the courtyard, wiped the statues, and occasionally picked auspicious moving dates for neighbors. By night, I ran midnight live streams to earn money for incense and electricity. My stream title was Midnight Readings at Hollow Sanctuary. Sounds mystical, right? In truth, my viewer count rarely passed 20, half of them were hater trolls, half were insomniacs, and the rest were spam bots advertising hair growth products or fake charm amulets. That night, heavy rain hammered down. Raindrops rattled on the roof tiles, dripping onto the shoulders of the temple statue and tracing down the peeling golden paint like tears. Power to the sanctuary had been cut that afternoon, so I could only light 2 white candles and set them on either side of my phone. The flickering flames cast swaying shadows across my face on screen, with the silent, bowed head of the deity behind me. Honestly, it looked a bit like a seance. I adjusted my phone stand, cleared my throat, and started the stream. Viewer count: 13. Great, 3 more than yesterday. I clasped my hands respectfully and said, "Welcome, restless insomniacs." Standard rules. Love readings are $19.90. Fortune is $29.90. Lost cat location is free if the cat cooperates. No cursing your exes, no black magic, no lottery predictions. If you call me a scammer, go vent somewhere else. Power's out, and my power bank is running low. Comments flickered across the screen. The poorest streamer on the platform is live. Why is it so dark today? Out of power again? The statue behind you looks terrifying. Are you sure this isn't a haunted house? She's just joking around, don't take the readings seriously. I glanced at the chat and replied calmly, "It's not a power outage. It's an eco-friendly, energy-saving livestream style." Right then, thunder boomed outside. Crack. The 2 candles on the table flickered violently at the same time, their flames leaning to one side, not toward the doorway, but toward the wall behind me. I looked at the screen. The comments sped up. "Nice special effects. Even the deity behind you is speechless. Wait, why are the candle flames tilting like that?" I didn't answer, because a second later, a gift notification flashed across the screen. A glowing red rose effect bloomed. Donation amount: $199. A high roller. Enough to pay off part of the power bill and buy a few packs of instant noodles. I sat up straight, my voice visibly softening. "Thank you. What would you like me to look into?" A message was pinned to the top of the chat. I want to know if the person in this photo is still alive. Then, she uploaded a picture. In the photo was a young guy standing under the white light of a convenience store. He wore a gray hoodie, tall and lean, holding 2 cups of milk tea. Beside him stood a girl with only half her face visible, laughing happily. The guy was looking down at her with an exceptionally gentle gaze, the kind of look you couldn't fake, and certainly not from someone who would suddenly abandon a partner without a word. I intended to ask a few basic questions first, but when I looked down at the ground in the photo, my fingers froze. The girl's shadow was perfectly normal. The guy's shadow had no head. I raised my eyes to the camera and asked, "Who is he to you?" The user went silent for nearly 10 seconds before replying, "My ex-boyfriend. He's been missing for 3 months." The chat erupted, "If he's missing, call the cops. Why ask a streamer? 3 months of no contact? Take the hint, why bother asking? Streamer, don't mess around with this stuff, it brings bad karma. Smells like a staged script." The girl's message appeared again. I reported it to the police, but there were no leads. His friends said he might have moved away for work. His parents claimed he just wanted to break ties with me. But I don't believe it. Right before he vanished, he promised to show me a new apartment over the weekend. He wanted to rent a place closer to my office so I wouldn't have to walk far after working late. He would never just leave me like this. I stared at the photo for a long time. My master once warned me, when the living ask about the dead, it's best not to answer. If the dead choose to respond, it means they are still trapped somewhere, and whoever helps them speak will be dragged into the vortex with them. I was about to decline, but right at that moment, a heavy knock echoed inside the sanctuary behind me. Knock, not from the front door, not from the table, it came from the ancient wall behind the statue. I turned around. The wall was streaked with rain stains and flaking plaster, patched over with faded paper charms left behind by my master. Nobody was standing there. Knock. The second sound rang out. The candle flames trembled again. The chat couldn't hear the sound and kept rolling. Why's the streamer quiet all of a sudden? If you can't read it, refund the money. Staging a missing persons case? Low move. Knock. The third sound. This time, it was crystal clear, like someone standing inside the wall, knocking outward with their knuckles. I laid my hand on the deck. A card slid out on its own and dropped onto the table. Clack. I hadn't drawn it, it fell out by itself. The card landed face down, its back marked with a thin streak of black liquid. As I stared at that streak, the metallic smell of wet cement, mold, and sealed, rotting blood filled my nose. I slowly flipped the card. It was the lovers, but before my eyes, the illustration on the card began to fade away. The angel vanished, the couple vanished, the garden and sunshine vanished. In their place emerged a wall, red brick, hastily covered in fresh cement and whitewash. The paint wasn't even fully dry before dark, damp spots seeped through from within. From the cracks between the bricks, black water slowly trickled down. Behind that wall, a human eye stared out, wide open. The eye was fixed on me. I heard faint, raspy breathing coming from very close, as if someone trapped in an impossibly tight space had gone hoarse from screaming, using their last thread of strength to knock against the concrete. Knock, knock, knock. I looked up at the camera. Before he disappeared, did he rent a new apartment? The girl replied instantly, yes. I asked again. The apartment has a relatively small living room, dark blue curtains, a glass coffee table, and the eastern wall has a slightly different shade of paint than the rest. This time, there was no reply for a long while. The chat gradually went quiet. A minute later, a new message popped up. Yes. Have you been there before? I didn't answer that. I stared at the eye behind the wall on the card. Stop looking outside. He never left that apartment. He's inside the wall. The livestream fell silent for a beat. Immediately after, the chat exploded. Are you crazy? That's so cruel to say to someone. She's looking for her boyfriend, and you claim he's dead inside a wall? Report this channel. Clout chasing without ethics. People really will say anything for fame. The girl stopped messaging. Maybe she was terrified, or maybe she couldn't bring herself to believe it. I stared at the endless stream of insults on the screen without explaining a single thing. Because behind me, the knocking continued. Knock, 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 but it grew weaker and weaker, as if the person inside had knocked for so long that his fingernails had ripped off and his knuckles had shattered, yet no one outside had ever heard him. I told the camera, don't go there alone. Call the police. The eastern wall of the living room, the spot where the paint color looks off. If you knock on it, it will sound hollow. The chat kept railing at me. Keep acting. If there's nothing in that wall, an apology won't be enough. Screen recorded. Crazy for fame. I reached out to turn off the stream, but right at that moment, a gray comment flashed across the screen. No username, no profile picture, just a single line of text. You shouldn't have seen that. The comment flashed for less than a second before disappearing. At the exact same time, a drop of black water oozed from the lover's card on the desk. Splash! A foul, ice-cold stench instantly filled the air. Both candles snapped out. The entire sanctuary plunged into pitch darkness. On the darkening phone screen, I caught the camera reflection behind me. Standing right beneath the deity statue was a man in a gray hoodie. Half of his face was covered in dried concrete. His remaining eye stared straight at me. His lips moved without making a sound, but I read his mouth. Save me. The next morning, I was woken up by my phone ringing. I opened my eyes, my head throbbing as if someone had jammed a boulder into my skull. The sanctuary was strangely quiet. The rain had stopped. Water dripped from the eaves into a brass basin below the statue, making soft, rhythmic tick-tick sounds. The phone kept ringing. I fumbled under my pillow and picked up, my voice raspy from exhaustion. Hello. If you're calling about the power bill, I'll pay this afternoon. If you're asking for a loan, I'm broke, don't test me. There was silence on the line, only choked sobbing. It was a sound held back to the absolute limit, like someone who had been terrified all night and only dared to breathe upon hearing my voice. After a moment, Maya spoke, her voice trembling. Chloe, you were right. I sat straight up, sleepiness instantly vanishing. Her voice shook with every word. I called the police. At first, they didn't believe me. The landlord even called me crazy. I just kept crying, begging them to try knocking on that wall. Finally, an officer agreed to check. The background audio on her end was chaotic, shouting, footsteps, crackling walkie-talkies, and someone dry heaving. She sobbed until she could barely catch her breath. The eastern wall of the living room was hollow. There was someone inside. It's Ethan. I closed my eyes. Even though I had seen it last night, hearing her say it sent a chill through my chest. Some answers don't bring relief even when you know them in advance. She wept bitterly. I visited that apartment so many times. I stood right in front of that wall calling his name. I even leaned against it and cried. Chloe, did he hear me back then? Was he knocking on the wall calling for me too? I didn't answer. The truth was too cruel. A person buried in a wall has their soul bound to the spot. If any consciousness remains, of course he would hear her. But what good did it do? The girl outside cried until her voice was raw. The man inside knocked until his hands were shredded. Separated by a thin layer of concrete, one was alive, one was dead, and neither could ever reach the other. Suddenly, a man's voice replaced hers on the line. Are you the streamer from last night? The voice was young but remarkably cold, not an engineered coldness, but the detachment of someone accustomed to homicide scenes, trained to override emotion with pure logic. I asked, who are you? Detective Vance, West District Criminal Investigation Unit. I looked up at the sanctuary statue behind me. After the storm, half of its face was streaked with water. I couldn't tell if it was an illusion, but the painted black eyes seemed heavier than usual today. Detective Vance asked, how did you know the body was inside the wall? I said, I read the cards. Silence stretched across the line for a few seconds. He asked again, read the cards? Yes. If you don't believe that, I could also say it was intuition, a dream from my master, or that the victim was standing behind me telling me himself. But I suggest you go with card reading, it sounds less insane. Silence fell again. A moment later, Vance said, I need you to come to the scene. I refused instantly. Not happening. I'm just a poor streamer, not a cop, not a forensic tech, and not family. What would I do there? Vance said, there's a talisman attached to the back of the corpse's neck. I froze. In the sanctuary, the white candle that had blown out last night suddenly ignited on its own. The flame burned eerie green. I stared at the green fire, my voice dropping. What kind of talisman? Vance replied, red paper. Written in 4 words. What 4 words? The destiny is buried. At that exact moment, a thud echoed from the old bookshelf behind me. A green-covered book fell onto the floor. I walked over and picked it up. It was open to a page with faded vermilion handwriting. Burying a body hides a crime. Burying a destiny seals the line. For one whose destiny is buried, the soul cannot descend, the name is wiped from the registry, and grievances are locked within the stone. In 7 days, a spirit forms, in 49, an entity born. A cold chill ran down my spine. Ever since my master disappeared, I had almost never touched this bookshelf. He used to say the books in Hollow Sanctuary were fine for light reading, but reading them seriously would give you insomnia. Now I understood why. I asked Vance, "How long has the body been buried?" "Around 3 months. I stared at the last line in the book. "In 49 days, a entity born." 3 months was well past 49 days. I grabbed my phone and asked for the address. Half an hour later, I stood outside an old apartment complex on the east side of the city. A 7-story building with peeling exterior walls and tangled wires hanging like spiderwebs. Downstairs was a breakfast stall. The smells of fried oil, drainage, and stale tobacco mixed together in the damp air. The stairs were slick from the rain, each step making a sticky sound. The crime scene was on the 5th floor. The hallway was sealed off with police tape, and neighbors stood at a distance, pointing and whispering. Everyone wanted a peek, but no one dared get too close. I overheard their chatter. "Is there really someone inside the wall?" I heard his girlfriend found out through a tarot livestream. Finding a body through fortune-telling? What kind of scam is this? What if that streamer girl is involved in the murder? Otherwise, how could she know so much? I pulled my hoodie lower, pretending not to hear. Doing live streams for a long time taught me one valuable skill. Real-world comments don't have scrolling text effects, so their damage power is much lower than online hate. The moment I reached the apartment door, Maya recognized me. She was crouching against the wall, face pale, eyes red and swollen. Seeing me, she stumbled to her feet and rushed over. "Chloe," she choked on her words. I patted her shoulder gently. "You did the right thing." She shook her head, tears falling again. "I came here so many times and had no idea. I even blamed him. I resented him in my heart so many times. Turns out he was right there the whole time." A male voice called out from behind us. "Chloe?" I turned around. A man was standing in the apartment doorway, around 27 or 28, tall, wearing a black shirt beneath an unbuttoned police jacket. Sharp features, clean cut, with faint dark circles under his eyes like he hadn't slept in days. He looked me up and down, gray-blue robes visible beneath my jacket, worn white cloth shoes, a tarnished brass coin bracelet on my wrist, and a corner of a tarot deck peeking out of my pocket. Detective Vance asked, "You're a priestess?" I replied, "A broke one." He glanced at the deck in my pocket. "A priestess who uses tarot?" I said calmly, "Times change. Cops use CCTV cameras now instead of relying purely on sniffer dogs." He stared at me for another 2 seconds, then stepped aside to let me pass. "Come in." I stepped into the apartment. The first stench to hit my nose was chemical disinfectant. But beneath it lingered another scent, damp, metallic, foul, like concrete soaked in rainwater for too long, wrapping around something deeply decayed. The living room wasn't large, dark blue curtains, a glass coffee table, and long drag marks visible on the wooden floor. The eastern wall had been smashed open. Broken bricks and concrete rubble littered the ground. Behind the demolished wall lay a narrow, pitch-black cavity. Dark stains clung to the edges of the bricks. The body had already been moved, but the lingering aura of death remained heavy. I stood 3 paces from the wall. My ears caught the sound again. Knock. 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 Very faint this time, as if the person knocking knew he had been found, yet still couldn't leave. Vance watched my expression closely. "Notice anything else?" I didn't answer immediately. I walked a slow circle around the living room. Beneath the coffee table was a tiny dent. The wooden floor between the coffee table and the wall had been wiped down, but faint drag scratches remained. In the corner sat a dusty artificial potted plant, but the floor underneath its base was unnaturally clean. I pointed at the plant. "Move that out of the way." A young officer standing nearby frowned. "Hey, don't go giving orders at a crime scene." I looked at him. "You move it or I move it? If I move it, don't claim later that I tampered with evidence." The young officer choked on his words and looked at Vance. Vance nodded. The forensics tech carefully shifted the potted plant aside. Beneath the base, etched into the wood, was a faint marking. It had been wiped, but under angled light, twisted lines emerged, forming the shape of an eye without a pupil. The young officer went silent. I pointed to the edge of the glass coffee table. "Check there. He was struck from behind right at this spot." The killer acted fast, then dragged him over to the wall. The tech immediately ran a luminol test for blood traces. A few minutes later, he looked up at Vance. Positive reaction. The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. The eyes that had viewed me with doubt, disdain, or curiosity were now tinged with something else, apprehension. I didn't like that look. People aren't afraid of scammers, they're afraid of things they can't explain. Vance pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. On the screen was the red talisman found behind the victim's neck. The paper was deep crimson, as if soaked in blood for a long time. The written characters were warped and unnatural. In the center were 4 small black words: "The destiny is buried." Below them was the symbol of the eye without a pupil. The moment I saw that eye, a sharp pain pierced my forehead. A brief vision flashed before my eyes. A young guy lying on the floor with a red talisman stuck to the back of his neck. A figure stood over him holding a bowl of red ink, chanting in a raspy voice. 1 wall to block the living, 2 bricks to bury the soul, 3 feet of cement to lock the destiny. From this day forth, your name enters not the underworld, your life belongs not to the mortal realm. Then the figure leaned down. I couldn't see his face, only a tattoo on his wrist, an eye without a pupil. I took half a step back. Vance immediately asked, "What did you see?" I took a deep breath, forcing down a surge of nausea. This isn't just murder and body disposal. The young officer tried to save face. If it's not body disposal, what is it? I looked at the shattered wall. It's a destiny burial. The room fell dead silent. I continued, the killer didn't just want him dead. He wanted his soul trapped, his name erased from the registry of life and death, and his resentment locked inside this apartment. The eastern wall belongs to the element of wood, which governs vitality. He used the position of life energy to seal the corpse, turning the deceased into an engine for a ritual array. The young officer turned pale. Vance asked, "A ritual array for what?" I shook my head. "I don't know yet." Right at that second, a drop of black liquid trickled from the broken wall. Splash! It hit the floorboards. Everyone in the room heard it. Outside the door, Maya screamed. The forensics tech backed away. Vance took a step forward, his eyes growing cold. On the rim of the wall, the black liquid slowly crept across the plaster, forming a line of warped words. "You shouldn't have seen that." My skin crawled. It was the exact same comment from last night. Simultaneously, my phone screen lit up in my pocket. The Livestream app had been closed, yet the live interface was displayed on screen. Viewer count: 1. No username, no avatar, only a single gray comment appearing line by line. The first one has been dug up. Where do you think the second one is? I gripped my phone tightly. From deep inside the empty wall behind us came a faint, distant knock. Knock, as if someone far away had just answered a call. That afternoon, I trended on social media. The headline was so long I got tired just reading it. Streamer from dilapidated temple predicts missing boyfriend inside wall. Police demolish wall and discover corpse. Clips from last night's stream were spliced into endless videos. The moment I asked about the eastern wall, the moment I said he was inside, the chat insulting me, and the police tape around the building the next morning. In the comments section, netizens split into 3 camps. The first camp apologized. "I called her unethical last night, I'm so sorry. I never thought it was real. I laughed when she mentioned the eastern wall, now I have goosebumps. May he rest in peace." The second camp remained skeptical, glorifying a murder case on social media? What if she had insider information? Streamer, victim, police. How do we know it's not scripted? The third camp was the most terrifying. Grandmaster, can you check if my husband is cheating? Miss, my cat has been missing for 3 days, is he still alive? I hear footsteps on my ceiling every night, do you do private readings? Sitting in the sanctuary, watching my follower count jump from 8,000 to 300,000, I didn't feel as thrilled as I thought I'd be. Fame really is a hassle. When I had 10 viewers and 10 were hating, I could just turn off the stream and sleep. Now with 300,000 viewers, even if just 1/10 left hate comments, my phone vibrated until it overheated. Private messages flooded in. I was clearing them while eating instant noodles. When I hit the 1,000th message, my hand stopped. The message had no sender name. The profile picture was blank. The content was just a pitch black image. I was about to delete it, but inside the dark image, a tiny point of light flickered. I zoomed in. It was an eye, without a pupil. Below the photo was a single line: "Don't go live tonight." I stared at it for a long time, then deleted the message. It didn't delete, it automatically jumped back to the top of the list. I closed the app. The screen lit up on its own with the same message: "Don't go live tonight." I set the phone down and turned to the temple statue. "Master, someone's threatening me." The statue remained silent. A drop of rainwater dripped from the ceiling onto its shoulder. Tick. I added, if I don't stream tonight, we won't have money to fix the roof this month. The statue remained silent. I took that as his consent. That evening, Detective Vance called me. His first words were, "Don't stream tonight." I stuck a straw into a box of soy milk and asked, "Are you paying the temple's electric bill?" Silence on the line. I said, "If you're not paying, don't stop me from making a living. You're being watched. I know, you know, and you're still going live?" I stared at the undeletable message on my screen. If I don't go live, that thing will still come for me. If I stream, at least a few 100,000 people will witness it. If I don't and I die in this sanctuary, tomorrow's news will just say a broke streamer died of unpaid bills. Vance's voice darkened. This isn't a joke. I'm not joking either. Whatever was in that wall has already knocked on my temple door. Someone behind this is watching me. If I pretend not to see it, I might be the next one built into a wall. The line was quiet for a long moment. Finally, Vance said, "All post officers near the sanctuary. Up to you. Just tell them not to stand under the locust tree in the yard. It doesn't like strangers." Vance asked, "Trees have tempers?" I replied, "Even poor people have tempers. Why can't a temple tree have one?" I hung up. At 12 o'clock sharp, I launched the livestream. The viewer count exploded. 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, 300,000. Hollow Sanctuary had never been this crowded. Comments flew by so fast they almost covered the entire screen. "She actually dared to stream. I insulted you yesterday. I'm here to kneel today. Wait, aren't the police investigating? Streamer, can you check if my ex is dead yet?" I laid my cards on the table. "I'm not taking open readings tonight. The investigation is ongoing. Please don't go to the crime scene, don't harass the victim's family, and don't spread rumors. I'm not a psychic or a cop. Last night was just a dead man knocking on the wall, and I happened to hear it." The chat paused for a second, then went wild. She says it so casually. A dead man knocking, like a delivery guy at the door. I'm getting chills. If you're so smart, name the killer. Yeah, read the killer. A red comment was pinned to the top. Do a reading on it. If you're not involved, how do you know so much details? The account username was Righteous Bystander. Looking at that handle, an unexplainable sensation washed over me. Not annoyance at being questioned, but because beneath those words, I caught a familiar scent. The smell of wet cement. I smiled. You want me to read the killer? Righteous Bystander, do you dare? The chat jumped on the rhythm. Yeah, do you dare? If he doesn't, he's suspicious. She can name a corpse in a wall, why not the killer? I shuffled the cards. Alright, the chat boiled over. I continued, but I'm not reading the killer. Righteous Bystander. Scared now? I drew a single card. I'm reading you. The chat flipped instantly. Boom. Counterattack. Live reading on a hater. Where'd Righteous Bystander go? Come on stage. The account was quiet for a few seconds before sending. Go ahead. Let's see you act. I flipped the card. It was the Hanged Man. But in my eyes, the figure on the card was dripping wet. Black water dripped from the hem of a raincoat. Drip, drip, drip. I saw a figure in a black raincoat standing in a dark stairwell. His right hand bore a fresh wound, and his left wrist was covered with skin-tone tape. Beneath the tape, a corner of a tattoo, an eye without a pupil, was exposed. I raised my eyes to the screen. You're somewhere very dark right now, not your house. The place smells of stagnant water and rusty iron. Your right hand has a fresh cut from broken brick or cement. Your left wrist has a tattoo, but you've covered it with skin-tone tape. The comment stream froze as if strangled. A few seconds later, messages burst through again. Where's Righteous Bystander? Deny it. Why are you quiet? The account replied, nonsense. I stared at the card. The vision grew clearer. The figure in the black raincoat crouched inside Ethan's apartment, pulling a red string tied to an ancient coin from under the glass coffee table. He turned to look at the eastern wall, hesitated for a second, then left hurriedly. I said, you aren't the primary killer, but you returned to the apartment after Ethan died. You took a red string tied to an ancient coin left behind by the murderer. You were ordered to retrieve it, but you didn't clean up completely. There was still vermilion powder left under the artificial plant. The chat went crazy. Oh my god, vermilion under the plant was real? Where is Righteous Bystander? I'm actually terrified now. Silence means he got called out? The account didn't reply right away. Half a minute later, a line of text appeared. You really want to die? Immediately after, the account vanished. Not banned, not leaving the room, the system displayed. User does not exist. At that exact moment, the live viewer count plunged from over 400,000 down to 380,000, as if a massive chunk of viewers had vanished into thin air. Behind me, a faint cracking sound echoed from the sanctuary statue. Snap! I turned around. On the half of the statue's face damaged by rain, a black line had appeared out of nowhere. The line curved into the shape of an eye, without a pupil. From outside the sanctuary gate came 3 knocks. Knock, 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 not the wind, human knocking. The chat panicked. Who's at the door? Don't open it. Is there a camera outside? I just checked the nearby street cam, there's no one at the gate. I grabbed a yellow paper talisman from the desk. From outside the gate, a raspy male voice called out, Chloe. Give me back my destiny. I didn't open the door. Ever since I was little, my master taught me, if you hear someone calling your name at midnight, do not answer. If there's knocking at the door, do not open. If it knocks exactly 3 times, under no circumstances open it. Because the living lack patience when knocking. Only things that aren't alive can stand in the pitch dark, knocking at steady, rhythmic intervals until the person inside loses their composure. Knock, knock, knock. The sound rang out again. I looked at the stream. The comments moved faster than my eyes could process. Don't open it. This is scripted, right? Tell me it's staged. That voice gives me goosebumps. Call the police. Streamer. There's a shadow behind you. I looked at my phone's reflection. Behind me, to the right of the statue, a figure was indeed standing there. Tall and lean, a gray hoodie, half of his face covered in concrete. It was Ethan. He wasn't looking at me, he was staring at the sanctuary door. His lips moved. I read his mouth. Don't open it. I grabbed my secondary phone and dialed Vance. He picked up instantly. Chloe, I said, there's a guest at the sanctuary gate. Human? Not sure. Sounds of someone jumping up echoed from his end. Don't open the door, I'm coming right now. I hung up. Outside, the raspy voice spoke again. You shouldn't have seen that. The dead should keep their mouths shut. You helped him speak, so someone has to pay his price. The temperature inside the main hall dropped rapidly. My breath formed a visible white mist in the air. The 2 candle flames turned vivid green. The stream feed distorted with static. My image on screen stretched and warped, while Ethan's shadow behind me blurred in and out. The chat went into full chaos. What's wrong with the signal? Who is that behind her? That's not the statue is on the left. I just took a screenshot, there's actually a face. The wooden courtyard gate creaked open. It was moving on its own. I pulled a yellow paper talisman from beneath the table. This was left by my master. The brushwork was hideous, so ugly that when I first saw it, I thought it was an unpaid bill. But my master had said to burn it in times of extreme danger. I had asked him, what if I don't have a lighter? He replied, then you die. Thankfully, I had candles today. I tossed the talisman into the green flame. The fire flared up, not hot, but freezing cold, so cold my fingertips went numb. The paper burned to ash in an instant. At that exact second, a heavy bell chimed inside the main hall. Clang. I froze. Hollow Sanctuary didn't have a bell. The sound seemed to originate from far away, yet reverberated inside my very bones. The creaking courtyard gate was slammed shut by an invisible force. Bang. A harsh, raspy screech sounded from outside the gate. Black liquid trickled under the doorway. It didn't look like rainwater. It was thick, cold, crawling across the floor tiles like a living creature, creeping inch by inch toward my streaming desk. I bit my fingertip and dropped a bead of blood onto the ancient coin bracelet on my wrist. I had worn this bracelet since childhood. My master told me never to take it off, or things in the night would recognize me easily. I had never asked who they were. My gut told me that asking would mean losing sleep forever. The blood soaked into the coin. The metal burned hot. I slammed my wrist down onto the floor tiles. By the lineage of Hollow Sanctuary, I, Chloe, borrow a square foot of clean soil beneath our ancestors' feet, seal. Incense ash from the burner shot into the air, swirling into a protective ring before the door. The black liquid hit the barrier and sizzled like boiling oil. From beyond the gate, the raspy voice let out a low laugh. You really think this worn-out sanctuary can hold me? A long crack split down the middle of the wooden door. Crack. I reached for the bamboo fortune-telling cylinder on the table. I wasn't good at physical fights, but this cylinder, carved from lightning-struck applewood, was the only thing in Hollow Sanctuary besides me that was stubbornly unyielding. My late master once used it to beat a ravenous ghost so badly that it broke down crying and begged to be exorcised instead. Another heavy blow struck the door. Boom! The crack widened. Right at that second, police cruiser lights flooded the courtyard. Sirens blared from the mouth of the alley. Detective Vance's voice thundered out, "Police!" The entity inside paused and retreated. Outside, complete silence fell instantly. The thick black water on the tile floor receded backward like a living creature. I rushed to fling the door open. Cold rain lashed against my face. There was no one in a black raincoat standing in the yard. Only a soaking wet paper doll lay on the doorstep, its face drawn in crude red ink. It had no eyes. Detective Vance stood in the courtyard with his gun drawn, backed by several officers. Officer Luke, the young cop who had tried to call me out earlier, was there too. His face was pale as chalk as he stared at the paper doll. I knelt down and picked it up using 2 fingers. On the back of the doll, a line of small characters was written, "A life for a life." Vance looked at me. "Are you hurt?" I was about to say no when a metallic, sweet taste suddenly welled up in my throat. A single drop of blood dripped from my nose, falling directly onto the paper doll. The red ink on its face instantly smudged, and in the empty space where the eyes should have been, a single pupil-less eye slowly bled into view. On the still-running stream, a gray comment flashed across the screen. "No username, no profile picture. Next time, it's your turn to be in the wall." After that night, Hollow Sanctuary became famous. Famous in a way that was very difficult to explain. Video clips of the sanctuary door bursting open, black water crawling across the floor tiles, the eyeless paper doll, and the shadowed figure behind me were edited and shared everywhere. Some called it special effects, others claimed it was staged. One user even zoomed in frame by frame, publishing a 3,000-word analysis attempting to prove that the half-concrete covered man standing behind me was real. But that analysis didn't survive 3 hours before being taken down for inciting public panic. I sat in the main hall of the sanctuary, eating plain rice porridge while scrolling through the comments. If this is staged, the prop budget is insane. I don't believe in ghosts, but I believe this sanctuary isn't clean. Where are the people who called her a clout chaser yesterday? Time to apologize. I still suspect she's involved in the crime. How else would she know so much? Reading that last comment, I let out a soft laugh. People truly were strange. Predict wrong, and they call you a scammer. Predict right, and they suspect you're an accomplice. Either way, I was the one getting cursed at. Detective Vance arrived at the sanctuary around noon, accompanied by Officer Luke. Luke was 24, young-looking, but stubbornly tight-lipped. Today he stood behind Vance, looking at me as if he wanted to apologize, but his throat seemed taped shut. I set my bowl of porridge down. "Here for a protection charm? No police discount." Luke cleared his throat nervously. Vance placed a thick case file on the table. "We found the apartment broker." I asked, "Is he alive?" Luke flinched. "How did you know?" I looked at him. He brokered the lease for an apartment with a corpse in the wall. If he were still alive by now, his luck would be good enough to win the lottery. Vance opened the file. "His name is Leo, 41 years old. He specialized in cheap rentals around the West District. 3 days after Ethan went missing, Leo skipped town. Last night, officers tracked him down to a small motel on the outskirts. He was dead, found in the bathroom, submerged in cold water. Written in blood on the bathroom mirror was a single line: 'I don't want to be buried.'" I looked at the crime scene photos, my brows knitting together. That wasn't a suicide note. This time, Luke didn't dare sneer, but he still asked, "Why do you say that?" I pointed at the image. The handwriting is shaky, but not from fear. His hand was being forced from behind by someone else. The blood dripped straight down, meaning the writer was standing extremely close to the mirror. But the water trail beneath his feet is half a meter away. Leo wasn't standing there when it was written. Something else held his hand to write it. Luke stared at the photo, his face turning even whiter. Vance said, "Forensics estimated the time of death around 10 p.m. last night." 10 p.m. last night, the exact moment the paper doll knocked on the sanctuary door. I asked, was there a talisman on the back of his neck? No, but there was an ancient coin placed inside his mouth. Vance slid another photo toward me. It was an old, green patinated coin with a square hole in the center, bound with a piece of red string. My heart sank. That was the exact object the man in the black raincoat had taken from Ethan's apartment, the item I had seen through the cards. Vance watched me closely. "You saw this in your reading." Luke asked in a low, hesitant voice, "Can you really see things like that?" I looked up at him. "Want to try? A love reading is $19.90. No police discount." Luke choked on his words. Vance handed over another photograph. "This is from the motel's security camera right before Leo died. In the photo, Leo was walking down the hallway with his head bowed. There was no one behind him, but reflected in the window pane beside him was a lean man in a crisp white shirt and glasses. His face was washed out by the glare of the light, but on his left pinky finger sat a distinct silver ring. I stared at that ring, my fingers growing cold. This was the true killer." Luke frowned. The camera didn't catch him directly, only his reflection in the glass. I nodded. "He's either using a concealment ritual, or he isn't fully standing in the living realm." Luke looked at me with an exceptionally complex expression. If this had been yesterday, he would have called me superstitious. Today, he stayed quiet. Vance asked, "Is there a way to track him down?" I pointed to the phone resting on the table. "He watched my live stream, and not just once. If I go live tonight, he'll come." Luke blurted out immediately, "No way. That's too dangerous." I looked over at him. "Thanks for the concern, but if you'd said that yesterday, it would have sounded a lot more genuine." Luke's face flushed bright red. "About yesterday? I'm sorry, I shouldn't have claimed you made it all up." I nodded with exaggerated generosity. "No worries. My face-slapping fee is $29.90. Scan the QR code next to the incense burner." Luke gasped. "Wait, what?" Vance cut in, staring at me. "You want to use yourself as bait?" "Not bait," I corrected. "It's fishing. Do you know what kind of fish we're dealing with? A vicious one that eats people alive." I picked up the tarot deck. "Doesn't matter. It already took the line." Vance studied me for a long time. "Chloe, do you actually realize what you're up against?" I turned to glance at the sanctuary statue behind me. The dark, eye-shaped mark on its face was still there. It couldn't be wiped off, nor scraped away. "I don't," I said softly. "Then why risk it?" A dead man knocked on my temple door. If I pretend I didn't hear it, the next person buried in a wall might be me. I paused, then added, "Besides, Ethan hasn't passed on yet." A sudden breeze blew through the main hall out of nowhere. On the table, the tarot deck flipped a card on its own, the Hanged Man. I heard a faint knock against the wall, tap, like a dead soul offering his consent. That evening, the police set up surveillance equipment in the side room of the sanctuary. Vance wanted to cut the stream immediately if things spiraled out of control, but I flatly refused. "You can't cut it." He chose the stream as his line of sight. "If you sever it, he'll slip away." Luke asked, "What do you mean by line of sight?" I lit 3 incense sticks before the shrine. When living people watch a stream, they're just here for entertainment. But certain entities don't use eyes, they use gaze as a tether. The higher the viewer count, the more tethers there are. With him hiding among them, that's my only chance to pull him out. Luke's expression worsened. "Then aren't the hundreds of thousands of viewers in danger?" "Yes, so if I tell everyone to close their eyes later, you too close yours as well." Luke started to argue, but Vance cut him off sharp. "Listen to her." I looked at Vance in mild surprise. He kept an unreadable face. "I ignored you once. I don't need to make the same mistake twice." "Fair enough." His face might be cold, but his brain isn't frozen. At 12 o'clock sharp, I went live. The viewer count skyrocketed instantly. 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, 300,000. Comments flooded the screen in a dense blur. "The priestess is live, doing readings tonight? Is the police team there with you?" I came back to apologize. "Where are the haters from yesterday?" "Don't glorify this, the case is still under investigation." I don't believe in magic, but she genuinely freaks me out. I arranged the tarot deck, the applewood fortune cylinder, and a cracked compass on the table. Then I brought out a bowl of clear water and dropped my ancient coin into it. The coin sank to the bottom, the water remained dead still. I looked directly into the camera. "No open readings tonight, I'm only pulling 1 card for a dead man." The chat slowed down noticeably. I continued, "If the screen glitches, if you hear knocking on a wall, or if you see someone standing behind me, do not speak that person's name. Do not read aloud any gray comments without a username. And if I tell you to close your eyes, close them immediately." Oh man, she's so serious, I'm actually getting scared now. What happens if we say the name? I'm under my blanket already. I'm not scared, I'm watching this from inside a police station. I drew 3 cards. The Lovers, the Tower, and Death. The moment the 3 cards were flipped, the candles in the hall turned eerie green simultaneously. The cracked compass spun wildly, its needle locking directly onto my phone screen instead of north.